It's to determine what you're made of, to really figure out what you're capable of at the end of the day. If your mind has control over your extremities, if you have the resolve to do it, if you have the willpower to override the discomfort, because growth is on the other side of that every single time.
Welcome to your awakening journey. Today's destinations include higher consciousness and actualized potential. If all ascenders could now please be seated in a comfortable meditative posture, we're about to ascend. You are now arriving at your host, Bryan Henry.
What is up, Ascenders? You're now listening to the Awaken podcast, a show in which we delve into some insightful, expansive conversations to assist you and the planetary collective consciousness in ascending to higher expressions of awareness, divine purpose, and infinite potential. My name is Bryan Henry. I'm the founder of Together We Ascend and the Ascend Academy over at togetherweascend.com and your host of the show. And I want to welcome you to the ascending journey. When you live in a state of presence, in awe, and gratitude, you better see and take advantage of the opportunities. The opportunities that are here, that are always here for you to grow. And in this episode of the Awaken podcast, we are joined by someone that I feel extremely grateful to having connected with and to have begun to form a relationship with, Julian Raimondo, aka my boy Jules. In this episode, Jules is here to share his story, his insights that I believe acts as a inspiring invitation to join him in such a state of presence, awe, and gratitude. One in which he is more fully experiencing the fullness of his potential as he dives straight head on into resistance. Something that he's come to see in his own experience and he shares with us is the importance of contrasting experience and how we can move into and use resistance as an opportunity to grow. So if you want to hear from someone that is seeming to be living from such a great state and in doing so, day by day, more fully getting to know the fullness of their potential through using resistance to grow, why don't you stick on with us? But before we jump into that, got to put out the invitation, family. Beings of light, light workers, starseeds, those of you that are here to serve in ascension, if you've heard the call, you know that you're here for a reason, which you are. If you've heard the call to serve, the Ascend Academy is looking for you. Our 4-phase activation process is able to activate in an individual their higher purpose. Our group gatherings that we host week by week brings together conscious leaders into a space of sharing and connection where we are bringing the best out in each other. So if you've heard this call to come together and to step up into a greater purpose, greater service to others, you could head on over to academy.togetherweascend to find out more and perhaps become the newest member of the Ascend Academy. Anyways, Ascenders, if you're ready to come into a state of gratitude, awe, presence, and to grow, this is my conversation with my boy Jules. What is the universe suggesting to you, my man? I'm talking to you about being a villain. You just auditioned for a role as a villain. What's going on here?
I couldn't unpack that if I tried. I mean, I think the beautiful thing in life is the serendipitous moments and the synchronicities that kind of unfold before you. I think there's an infinite amount of potential, to quote a dear friend of both of ours. And you know what? I think if it's in the cards and it's meant to be, I think it's meant to be. For my particular career choice at the moment, I feel like it's kind of one of those things: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and when the actor is ready, the role will appear. There's a lot of things that come into play in order to get a role that's kind of meant for you. There's a lot of behind the scenes, things that have to come into play. You have to be ready for it. You have to be right for it. It has to be filming in a location that where they're casting has to be, in your location. There's a lot of different things, but I think at this stage or point in my life, I'm really just enjoying the process of auditioning and watching what naturally unfolds. I'm not fussing it as I was for the last probably 20 years.
That's great to hear, my man. I think, as you know, living from that awareness, that enjoying this moment, enjoying the process of it, is kind of the best place to be, rather than making it about chasing after something.
Yeah, it's been a definite message from some of the experiences that I've had, and something that's been it's come through quite strongly in the last, we'll say, 4 to 6 weeks for me, which is just the idea of being present and in observance in a particular moment, and to allow the beauty of life to unfold before you, and to be in a position where you're not casting any judgments, or you've got a release of your expectations on outcomes and things of that nature, just to really be in reverence of the majesty of life and what it does for you on your behalf.
So tell me about the effect that living from this awareness and this sort of approach is having for you.
I mean, the most incredible thing that's happened for me is I don't have any miserable or bad days. I've literally been, I have to take an amount of work to get out of my mind and sit in observance of how my day is unfolding. So there's a bit of work involved in that, where I'm not forcing an agenda or trying to paddle upstream, I guess, so to speak. But I mean, I've been experiencing an immense amount of just openness and flow in my day-to-day life. Conversations with people have been incredible. Opportunities have been presenting themselves on a regular basis. It's been traveling downstream and being in a position where I can actually take a look around my surroundings and enjoy, the beaver that happens to be beside the river, or the bear in the trees, or whatever happens to just kind of come my way. It's an appreciation and a state of gratitude, fully and constantly, which is beautiful. And it progresses in a way that it's kind of humorous, because it's almost like you look at an opportunity or an experience or something that's going on, and you're saying, like, this is an incredibly beautiful experience, and it's like the universe says, you think that's beautiful? Let me show you something else. And then you get this next thing that happens. And you're like, oh my God, that was even better. And then the universe just says, you think that was great? Let me show you something else. And it's compounding. It's an incredible experience to be a witness of. And I found over the years how often I would just push and resist against it. I'm constantly fighting through traffic or whatever the case is. I haven't found, obviously with COVID, traffic has been moderately light, but as I know, I've been watching a lot of podcasts, listening to a lot of podcasts with Matthew McConaughey, but it's like literally I'm just catching every green light right now. I'm nonstop green lights. I'll be in a lane, tough traffic, and the traffic just parts out of my way, and I'm in this beautiful, safe little bubble. Sun peeks out, graces its majesty on my face, and shows me what a beautiful day is. And then the next thing happens, and it's just like I'm just marveling at it all. I'm just in constant awe and wonder at how incredible life is.
So there's this notion that living with this presence, making it entirely about right here, right now, has this effect of inviting greater in. And it seems like your experience is painting evidence for this. Do you believe that's the case? Do you believe that being completely present with what's before you and entirely focusing on enjoying what's before you allows for more opportunities and greater experiences to follow suit?
I would suggest that what it does is it puts your mind in a state that allows you for an alternative perspective to what you might like to the contrary. So it really forces a different outlook on what is available to you. I think if you're kind of in a not optimal mindset, what tends to happen is you look at the things before you, whether they be challenges or even a negative experience. You look at that in a way that feeds into the idea that it's not for your benefit. When you're in a state of gratitude and in presence and observing, you're constantly looking for the opportunities. So you're in essence forcing yourself to really focus on the potential for expansion and for growth. You can look at, as an example, I have an example where there was I was involved in a moderate, for me, car accident. Somebody had come up from behind me and took out my back tire of a Jeep that I was driving, and actually he ended up spinning out quite significantly and rolled his car about 4 or 5 times down a 20-foot ditch.
Holy shit.
And yeah, I mean, it was on Halloween. I was dressed as Wolverine. I had a full Wolverine wig on and claws, and wasn't driving with the claws though. I had to actually climb out of the driver's side window to get out of the vehicle. And yeah, just because when he had hit the back wheel of the car, he pushed the driver's side or rear door into the front door, so I couldn't open the door. So I had to open the window to climb out. And I mean, so like I, as anyone would at that point, I pretty much knew, seeing about my axle, my wheel was bent inwards, that my car was going to be likely a write-off. And I immediately, got a tow, ambulance came, fire trucks came. But your initial response is like, I'm fucked. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
I was
bro, here, let me give you open license to be everything and anything that you authentically are.
Perfect. So your initial response is like, I'm fucked. My car is done. I just purchased a car within 6 months to a year from that. So I hadn't driven it for very long. It was a not brand new, but it was an older Jeep Grand Cherokee. It cost me about $11,000 at the time. And I could have collapsed and freaked out. And, obviously my main interest at that time was to make sure that the driver of the other vehicle and the passengers were safe, and make sure that everyone was okay. And then obviously once you realize that people are generally safe and okay, you start figuring out, you're thinking about your insurance and you're thinking about all the negative things that coming about from that. And what I realized shortly after is that that experience actually freed up the $11,000 to give me an opportunity to take my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, on a 4-week trip to South Africa, to which we also spent a little bit of time in London and Paris. And I had about $3,000 left over after all that, to buy another vehicle, which served me for about 5 years. So it was literally a blessing in disguise. I didn't have the funds at the time. It was a planned family vacation that I was still, heavily trying to weigh into whether or not I would be able to manage the time away from work and spend the time with the family. South Africa is not, it's not a close trip by any means in terms of travel time. My mother was going to see her aunt, who basically raised her there, who was turning 80. And that's kind of what I mean by looking at the opportunities and the gifts within a situation. I think if something like that were to happen to me now, I would, still run through the misery and the guilt or the shame or the anger or frustration in the situation. But I think I would revert much more quickly into looking for the opportunities. Like, what are the opportunities for me to grow here? What are the opportunities for me to learn here? What are the opportunities for me to expand in some way? And I think that's coming from a place of being present and in gratitude, looking at the universe as, I've heard this multiple times before, but I understand it now with so much better knowing of, that life is happening for you, not to you.
Actually, just yesterday, on that note, I heard someone frame essentially the same notion. It's the shift from life is happening to me to life is happening for me to life is happening by me to life is happening through me to life is happening as me.
Amazing.
As me. And it's the same notion. It's for you, it's happening through you, as you, and gratitude, man. Gratitude. I feel like on some level I could just start the recording, be grateful, end of episode.
full stop. Bye. Full stop. Yeah, but what I think it is that more often than not, we're just conditioned to look for fears and things to keep us safe. I think that really affords us this typically negative response to things that happen in your life, to keep you from experiencing it again. We fear the things that are unfamiliar and uncomfortable. And when we're presented with situations that stimulate those two ideas, it's the default mode of just trying to prevent it from happening, keep it at arm's length, keep it away. But again, that really prevents us from the opportunity of looking at it with the framing of, if life is happening for my benefit, if life is happening to present me with the experiences and opportunities to truly reveal the character that I am, why am I going to resist it or to damn it in some way? Why am I going to push it away? Um, I should be fully, or we all should be fully embracing the experiences. I'm not to say that they're going to be, you know, fucking gold pots, rainbows, and unicorns all the time. Um, but if you can look at them in awe and reverence and take yourself out of the equation, take yourself out of that situation and try to see it from a different perspective, it can be hugely gratifying in terms of what kind of things you can glean from it, what kind of information or character traits from yourself. I mean, one of my all-time favorite sayings is, "A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor." It's through our failures and through our trials and tribulations that we really reveal our true selves and our essence. And again, if you're in a state of gratitude through that,
Mm-hmm.
it's just fucking, it's magic.
Yeah, it's the looking for the opportunities to grow. I've come to really appreciate the power and looking at every single moment as an opportunity to grow. And I do find myself living with this awareness that whatever's being presented to me is happening for a reason. There's something here that supports me. There's a reason why I'm creating this. You if you subscribe to the notion that you're the creator of your reality, then
Mhm.
why is it that I'm creating this? What is it that, in what way does this serve me? And I think you're doing a really good job here of really driving the point that gratitude and that opportunistic sort of approach to life go hand in hand. And so I love that this goes beyond just it's the frame of mind that allows for you to approach those opportunities more effectively. Not only see them, but approach them in a way that will support you in getting more out of them. So it's noticing them as they come. And I think that's what you're saying here. That's why it leads into better getting better, because you're not only seeing those opportunities, but you're acting on them, because it seems to me that the person that's grateful is going to take advantage of those opportunities as well.
Yeah, it is next to impossible to be grateful and to be presented with something and to not see that it is appreciating the value as opposed to depreciating the value. And as you start moving into those different opportunities and discovering more about yourself and discovering and realizing that somewhere in that, if you look intently with purpose and intention, um, you will find the thing that's in there for you. I'm not going to pretend that negative stuff doesn't happen. I'm not going to, um, assume or think that everything, like as I mentioned before, is just all sunshine and rainbows. Um, but they're all part of the beauty of the experience of life. The duality of life is the contrast. We have to have a certain amount of a baseline um, experience in order to judge everything else accordingly. You have to have the rain to appreciate the sun. You need, one of the things I love about Canadian weather, as horrible as it can be sometimes, is that the winters really make me appreciate summer. There's nothing like a 4 foot snowfall and minus 40-degree weather that doesn't make me look at a beautiful, sunny, warm day and want to get outside and just enjoy it. And in contrast, when those 40-day humid weather mosquitoes are out, I can't stop sweating. just, sitting in place, I long for those colder, crisp winter days. And it's the beauty of it. And it's finding that majesty in both, finding that and again, it takes work, it takes time. It takes a lot of self-discipline and control. But it is in the struggle that we find our growth, and um, our growth is infinite. It doesn't stop. It doesn't wait for anything. If you're presented with opportunities and experiences that are showing up with regularity, I mean, it's very likely that whatever you're supposed to be learning or experiencing, you're not getting that message. So it's coming at you repetitively. And it's coming, and usually at a certain point, it'll come at you hard and fast, and it'll wake you up. It's that idea of just being thrown into the deep end of the pool. You might get a couple opportunities to step a foot in or to jump in the shallow end, but sooner or later, at any pool party with an aggressive younger man, you'll find sooner or later somebody's going to grab you and just toss you in the pool. They'll look at you and say, stop thinking about it and just get in there. And if you keep fighting and resisting, sooner or later, some giant person, an adult, if you're a kid, will just pick you up, toss you in, and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a little bit more kind than that, but you remind me of an experience that we shared just a few weeks ago that feeling called to speak to. What did we do, my man?
Let's do it. Open it up.
You and I broke through, along with a few other beautiful men. We broke through some ice on the surface of a lake.
Yep.
And jumped right in. I should take it back a few moments before that, when I was on the fence. The resistance was being felt, the resistance to doing such a thing, as on some level I feel like is inevitable. It's not easy. I would say that the hardest part about what is that we did there was the moments approaching it. Because once you get in, I actually find it funny that it's not nearly as bad as your mind made it out to be. But trust me when I say that those moments before it, those were challenging. Those were challenging. And the words I said to you a little bit before we went out there was, I don't know if I'm up for this today, man. I don't know if I'm up for this. And I remember your words in response, and they were, none of us are. None of us are, but that's why we do it. Diving full force into, walking straight into that resistance. Tell me about your experience, and tell me about why you do it. Why would you put yourself through that?
I mean, as I said before, I think what it really is for me is a revealing of myself. I mean, you can't test your resolve, your determination, or your ambition, or any other adjectives you want to throw in there, in that same kind of idea, without putting yourself through an extreme situation. I mean, I have a small background in fitness, and there's a reason why people chase their personal records. It's to determine what you're made of, to really figure out what you're capable of at the end of the day. If your mind has control over your extremities, if you have the resolve to do it, if you have the willpower to override the discomfort, because growth is on the other side of that every single time. There is never there's never a situation that I've experienced that really stimulated growth that wasn't through some type of stress or struggle. And that sometimes is my own mental stress and struggle, making something greater than what it actually is, as you just mentioned. Sometimes it's the typical idea of which is becoming hugely popular in a lot of circles right now, of like cold showers and ice baths is what, to a degree, more or less what we were ultimately doing at that point. But it's familiarizing yourself with that discomfort, so that you're not shying away from opportunities. Most opportunities, a lot of times, are new, and with a new opportunity brings about unfamiliarity and discomfort. But it also opens up a realm of awe and wonder because of the newness of it, because of that sensory overload of travel, like different cultures, different flavors, different scents, different different ideas, if they're interesting in a way and somehow conflict your current ideologies or beliefs, it can be very uncomfortable to sit within those. But being open and putting yourself in a constant state of looking for struggle affords you the opportunity to embrace those and to learn from them, and to potentially formulate a new idea or identity or belief system. And again, that's just the growth of it. It's a really fascinating kind of mind game that I think anybody who's interested in personal development should subject themselves to at some point or another, because we're too much of a society that focuses on successes, and I think we often fail to recognize that those successes are always built on a multitude of failures, a multitude of struggle, a multitude of valleys to the peaks. There's more often than not, one success is built on the back of hundreds, if not thousands, of failures. And you weather those storms and you become that sailor who is ready for the hurricane.
The Stoics speak to a practice of voluntary discomfort, and it's exactly what you're referring to. Putting yourself in those types of situations voluntarily so that you train yourself to better cope with them, and when they naturally arise. And I think the other important point to this is that you'll be less likely to resist the discomfort that comes with, as you mentioned, new opportunities. So you believe, would you say that's inevitable? A sense of discomfort being the stimulus for growth?
I would pry into that, and I would say it's dependent on how the person chooses to observe that stress or that struggle. Just as any person who's at high level of performance, there becomes a point where you do it till you love it. Fitness, is work. It's hard work. And I would argue that most people first starting off on any fitness journey hate it. But if you put yourself through enough burpees, at a certain point, they become easy and they're no longer a struggle. And if the trainer comes along and says, we're doing 1,000 burpees today, you're going to look at the trainer and say, I'm in, I'm down. But you take a newbie and you're saying, we're going to do 20 burpees today. And they're going to look at that and they're going to say, fuck no, I'll do 10, and it'll take me 45 minutes to do 20. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really, to me, it's really about choosing your struggle and finding a love and reverence in that. You have one of the guys posted in our group chat a fantastic quote, and to paraphrase it, was basically, having a six-pack is hard. Being fat is hard. Choose your hard. Choose your level of difficulty. Do you want to choose eating poorly and neglecting your health as your level of difficulty and struggle? Or do you want to choose being very meticulous on and disciplined in your daily practices and regimen as your struggle? If you look at the opportunity of struggle and you balance out both, you look at both options or opportunities of the struggle, I would argue that most people would probably choose the struggle that's going to give them the most growth, and in a way that is on their terms as opposed to somebody else's terms. And so, is it inevitable to have struggle for growth, or some stress for growth? Fitness tells me yes. Fitness tells me that you have to, put your body under stress for growth. My life experience tells me yes. Mental stress, stimulates growth. That stress is a good signal for, discomfort in general is a good signal for you looking for something more. I heard another fantastic quote circulating on like YouTube and social media in general. And it was about a crab, and how the crab, as it starts to grow, when it starts to feel the stress of its muscles under its hard shell, it's the indicator that it is needing to grow. And as that stress starts to get tighter and tighter around its muscles, it knows that it needs to produce a certain chemicals so it can create a new shell to break from that, through that, and to get larger in size. And I think that's very much the case with most aspects of life. You can't have a house and fill it with too many things before at some point it's going to bust at the seams. If you want to take the fitness analogy again, it's like, your pants can only take so much stress and resistance before they split. And if you don't grow them, if you don't get bigger pants, it's going to break under the weight. And I think that breaking point is for the mental health aspect can be one of the worst things you can probably go through, but incredibly liberating at the same time when you get through.
And I'm seeing now too, it's also exactly where it's through the challenges that we get to experience our greatness. How can we know, as you said earlier, how can we know what we are capable of unless we are presented with something that we have to match up against, something that we have to face? And that's why that leveling up of the degree of challenges that we face kind of grows with us, right? And so it goes back to the contrast, right? The experience of the contrast for us to truly appreciate and understand who we are and what we're capable of. And as a good friend of ours would say, I like to think that we're of infinite potential. We have to be put in these situations that entail a little bit of resistance so that we can experience our greatness. I've been really loving that that way of framing it, experiencing your own greatness. there's a question that I've been coming back to a lot lately. I'd love to hear you answer it. I ask myself this in a moment, for the moment, and it's, how do I want to experience myself? And so I bring that to the moment and say, how do I want to experience myself right now, opposed to it being, this larger picture for my life. But you can definitely, I've asked in that context as well, and I'd love to hear your response to it through that lens. How do you want to experience yourself?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I would answer that by saying to the fullest. I want to be able to enjoy specifically myself to the fullest. I want to be fully aware of exactly everything that I'm capable of doing. And I would love to not even get to, as you just mentioned, potential is infinite, but I would love to experience a fullness of my potential. I would love to experience even a glimpse of the things that I'm capable of doing um, in any capacity. I would love to, get behind a serious back squat and squat an insane amount of weight that I never even fathomed I would love to experience life as in its fullest capacity, and engage in interesting and beautiful conversations with incredible people. um the joys of this experience are that we have such a buffet that we can sample every item on it and ultimately choose the thing that we have a preference to for whatever reasons on that day. Um, and I think for me, knowing my capabilities as well as my boundaries um, just gives me a sense of freedom. I think that it gives me a sense of freedom in a sense of just being able to play around it, to play through it and with it. I
Mm-hmm.
life is just such an incredibly beautiful um, thing to be observing of, and to limit myself in any way would be a denial of the enjoyment of that experience. So yeah, fullness. I want to experience myself fully.
A fullness that reaches into infinity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the constant expansion, the never ending journey of expanding into more. I love I love bringing it together, how we can touch on both living fully in this moment with presence, with wonder and awe for what's being presented before us, but then also being in that intention of seeing yourself become more, experiencing yourself become more.
Yeah, I think for me the idea of being present sometimes um, can sometimes lead into this idea where you're being complacent or lazy, where you're just kind
Mm,
of like
stagnant.
not, yeah, where you're not engaging in
Doesn't need to
the
be though.
opportunity. You're letting you're just kind of like thinking that things are going to just show up for you, or not have um, an invested interest in something. And to speak on that, like, I don't think that's the case at all. I think but what it's really about is, moving and being presented with the tasks of the day, and having an intention of, whatever that is, growth for fitness, going back to the fitness thing. It's fine to have a plan to look like, we'll say, like a magazine model or something. But it's understanding that, today presents itself with different opportunities. Again, understanding my own limitations and boundaries, understanding my physicality, my body would be, walking into a gym with a plan, but potentially throwing that completely out the window because the machines are tied up, or because I realize that I'm not necessarily feeling inspired at that moment to work on that specific plan. But knowing that ultimately the goal at the end is still going to be achieved, because I'm doing my daily practice of working out, and I'm still being physically active, but being fluid enough in the moment to take it in and kind of go with what's being presented, go with what is being revealed for you. And a lot of times in that mindset, in that state, you might, it's happened to me about 100,000 times, where you walk into a gym and maybe somebody interrupts you and decides they want to have a conversation with you, and 45 minutes later, your kind of allocated time has been thrown out the window, and you're kind of frustrated at the fact that you didn't get that big workout in, or whatever. But then maybe you've created a relationship in that exchange. Maybe you've inspired that person in some way to be more physically active, or maybe they've given you something. Maybe they've given you a sense of perspective on your particular journey, telling you that, looking at you as a role model when you've been in the thick of things and not seeing any results, or not recognizing or noticing results. And maybe that exchange is really about, as much as it's about helping them out, it's also boosting your own kind of confidence. And maybe the thing that you needed right there at that moment was that conversation, as opposed to the hard workout.
Yeah. What I'm getting is the importance in having an intention, and still remaining detached and non-resistant to the experience, not judging it, not judging what comes as being wrong, and again, not resisting what comes. So being pinpointed in, here's what I intend on experiencing, but as the moment comes, you embrace it with presence.
Absolutely. There's it's, what is that book title? The Obstacle is the Way. Like, the journey is the experience. If we were all blessed with the physique of our dreams and the finances, that's, whatever it is that we want, ultimately, like, what would you do with your life at that point? If you have everything you want, if you didn't have to work for any of it, what would you do for it? Like, what would you do outside of that? There's only so much of that, I think, that you can take it, and to a point, you're going to start seeking greater and larger things. There's a beauty in the process. The more we focus on just the successes and the people at the top of Everest, we only see or take in that achievement, and we forget all of the things that have needed to happen in order for that to take place. And I would argue that probably a good portion of people who have achieved something in their life, it could be as insignificant or unimportant as, like, just as a kid buying your first toy or video game with your own money. Once you get it and you play with it for a little while, you're on to the next thing. You're done with it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the it's the it's the doing of all the chores and to building up the allowance. It's the hard work that it took to make that money, to give you the opportunity to buy that.
Mm-hmm.
um that's where the real kind of fun and magic has. So the intention gets set, the thing that I want to achieve is there, the focus stays there, the direction in general, that stays as your true north, at your compass point. But you're also very flexible and able to, take a little bit of a detour when necessary, to take a little bit of a hard left or a hard right, knowing that you're always kind of come back and meet your destination. um but there's that whole ride, like the ultimate destination for most humans. We all have an expiry date, and we're all going to one place. And it would be a completely miserable existence if we didn't enjoy the roller coaster ride.
It's not even about the end thing. It's not even about the result. It's the way that invokes in you the inspiration to move through the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we learn to enjoy the process through the midst of it. And then it becomes interesting because then you start to realize that it's not about that thing, and getting that thing isn't going to do for me what many are thinking it's going to do. They think the fulfillment, the joy comes from the experience of that end result. Now,
it's
there
the
is
it's the earning of, I would say, it's earning it. It's the same thing that we were talking about with the cold. It's earning your stripes. It's earning that empowerment. That's the true value and the fulfillment out of it. And I'm
and
sorry
then
to
when you
interrupt you.
get there, there becomes the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You take that break at the top of that mountain for a little bit. You enjoy it. You look over the horizon. You take in the view, but then you look up and you realize there's a bigger mountain to scale.
Yeah. Or even or another planet, or another something.
That's where
there's
we're
there's
going.
always yeah, there's always greater and more. I mean, it's in our beautiful world, there's like, we've only scratched the surface of exploration.
And we can always
I
say that.
think,
I think we can
yeah,
always say that we were only scratching the surface.
yeah, there's
There will
just
always
so
be more.
much. There is always more. I mean, like we're so, as a culture, I think we're so just enamored by consumption,
Hmm.
and consumerism. And I think we often mistake growth for um, more, to a degree. It's like, I want a like bigger house. I want a fancier car. Uh, and I would say, sometimes that is in to a degree growth, but to what we're both speaking on here is a growth that instills a sense of fulfillment in your core essence of being, a growth
Hmm.
that resonates outward to the people that we communicate with, the people that we interact with on a regular basis. um, it's an expansion of our essence, I guess, would be the way I would probably try to summarize that.
Hmm. And I think deriving our sense of growth from that, recognizing that that's where the true growth lies, opposed to these external indicators of success, is so key. Because what I'm starting to really recognize, and it's the trap that the masses are caught in, is using these external indicators as reference for their sense of self-worth, their sense of growth even. Um,
Hmm.
and I think as long as we're looking for that in something outside of ourselves, there's going to be a feeling of something missing within.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so cliche in this um world of I guess what we'll call it an alternative thinking. Um, but it is absolutely true. I mean, it's there's nothing external that can bring you a true sense of fulfillment. It needs to come from within. It needs to be projected outwards. It needs to be cultivated from within. It needs to be honored from within, and it's projected outside. It's projected out, and it literally gives your overall sensations, whether that be sight, touch, sound. It projects out of there and through that, and it gives you a greater sense of, again, appreciation, of gratitude, of love, um of joy and happiness. You cannot have um you can't have that idea um of searching without. So searching for an external source of enjoyment or fulfillment. um what's the point I'm trying to make? You can't utilize you can't have that as your main idea of being, ultimately, because there's just always something different and greater coming about, and you're constantly going to be chasing. I was on our drive home, which you took a different car. um One of the people in the vehicle with me was basically, he was like, it's much easier to ride the high than it is to chase it. And I think that applies to what we're talking about, because if we're talking about an internal high and riding that out, it's a much more fluid and easy place to sit in than it is if you're constantly chasing the high, constantly
Mm-hmm.
trying to work at obtaining or achieving something, as opposed to being genuinely happy, as opposed to doing the internal work and uncovering the things within yourself that you choose to give value or to make matter, and living in that resonance, as opposed to trying to chase something, trying to achieve something, trying to I guess it would be like, being as opposed to doing. Be happy as opposed to trying to do happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another way that I've come to think that of that is rather than do the things that you think will make you happy, and even a step further than that, rather than so there's doing the things that you think will bring you to happiness,
Mhm.
but even doing the things that will make you happy, thinking that if I do this, I'm going to be happy.
Mm.
I think there's a level even higher than that, and it's be happy and do
Be
from there.
happy. Yeah. Yeah,
Be happy
absolutely.
and do from there.
Hit the nail on the head with that one for sure. Yeah.
And I believe that the actions that are in greatest service to you and all others around you are going to be the things that you naturally do from first residing in a state of joy.
Hmm. I agree.
So I love this notion of like spontaneous action. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's a very a Taoist kind of teaching. They won't get too deep into that, but my takeaway from it is the living in this state where there's no gap between thought and action, where here's what I'm going to do, take a second, contemplate, okay, I'm going to do it now. It's living in this state of seamless action after action. And I want to tie this back to the point we were just making there. I believe when we reside in this natural state of joy, this joy for being, that sort of experience tends to unfold through us. It starts to emerge through us, where we're acting without too much mental conceptualizations taking place or contemplation taking place, and these actions are just effortlessly flowing through us. And it's the actions, again, I want to say, that are in greatest service to ourselves and to those around us. Have you ever, you feel like you've ever gotten a taste of living in such a state?
I would say, yeah, probably when I'm traveling. When I'm traveling, and it kind of ties back into just having that awe and wonder through my experience. Um, I live very much in a place of not over analyzing what I feel called to do at that particular moment. If it means, obviously, if there's a specific itinerary or agenda, that can be kind of difficult. But when you're just kind of exploring freely, you just see something and lean towards it. If you're walking down the street of a new place that you've never been to and you catch a smell of something that smells delicious, you don't ignore it and just kind of go down the other way, because you I mean, if you were meeting with a friend or somebody specific, but if that catches you and you're inspired to investigate and you walk towards it and you see maybe a bakery or fantastic pastry of something, or a street food that just is incredible, that's something that you wouldn't necessarily have gone for if you were thinking about it, or if you were processing it in too much of a judgment based thought process. um, it's even in some of the places that I've been kind of cautiously warned to avoid, or to be aware of pickpockets or this or whatever the case is, trouble. um, if you don't really go out looking for it, it won't really find you. If you're out there just kind of exploring and in a state of that joy, awe, and wonder, and you feel inspired or called to do something different, walking through the woods or off a trail, you might see a different trail or something else that kind of looks interesting, and you lean in towards that. That's probably for me one of the biggest experiences of what we're speaking to that I can think of.
Nice. I'm glad that you've gotten a chance to experience that. I want to say that's our best state of being, our greatest state of being, living from that place. It also, I feel like, very much ties into another conversation that we had a few weeks ago, and I I want to bring it up. Well, tell us the I don't know if we ever figured out the movie where I don't know, you said it was like an energy or shadow that was like pulling this person along.
Yeah, Donnie Darko. Yeah,
Tell us,
yeah.
show us the analogy, my friend.
Um, that I thought it was really interesting in that specific scene. I mean, the best sense I could make of it, because it's a very dark and beautiful movie, but kind of almost confusing. But what I kind of unpacked from that, which was beautiful, was that there was this life force that resides in every human. In this particular scene, there's a person sitting on a sofa, and this kind of like liquid looking energy or stream comes out of his chest, and it meanders its way through the house, and it gets to the fridge, and it starts bumping the fridge. And there's a person who's observing this happening and is really caught off by it, because he's now been given this gift of vision, and he can see this. And this person kind of uncontrollably stands up and follows this stream to the refrigerator, and then opens it up and takes something out. And it was how I kind of viewed it was how there is definitely something within all of us that that's calling to us. And those of us who are aware enough to have a consciousness around that can really kind of you have to excuse me for a second, my dog's going, but it can really Pepper, good girl, come here.
Pepper wants in on the conversation.
She is, yeah. I'm just busting up my villain. This is my little cat, my Dr. Evil cat. Sorry, I lost my train of thinking. But yeah, so it's like this, it's just this life force that calls to you, and that it draws you, it pulls you into a certain direction, into a certain state. I was listening to Jordan Peterson this afternoon during work, and he said something that he just wrote a book, so I think he's doing his book tour. And what I really enjoyed, he made this point that anytime that something sparks an interest within you, that kind of gives you like oh yeah, I really that really resonates with me in some way, shape, or form. It's kind of calling to a part of your potentially developing new identity. So there's anything that we start showing an interest in, or that captivates us, that draws your attention. If we look at that from an analytical kind of introspective way, it can be very revealing as to what type of personality or character that we're trying to evolve into, to grow into. And so that kind of ties in with this, which is like, if there's sometimes, people feel in that specific case from that film, I mean, he was hungry, or I don't remember if he wanted a beer or something, but there was a calling within him in that particular situation, probably coming from, something within the body that was requiring some nourishment, or an escape if it was a beer. But there was a calling, there was that pull, and all he had to do to answer that call was to move in the direction, to be open enough to follow it, to listen to that internal essence of knowing and make the first step of getting up off the couch. And, whatever he was ultimately looking for was on the other side of that fridge door.
There is that call. And we can call it many different things. We can think of it however we may want to. Perhaps it doesn't serve us to think of it at all. What I've grown to truly believe is that answering that call, aligning with that guidance, brings about a very fulfilling, liberating sense. And I like to say that it becomes this intersection point where it's both feeling like you're allowing yourself to be moved by this life force where you kind of just let go and let it take you. But at the same time, you're very much in control over yourself, your actions. So, it's the flow state, man, where we're describing it in so many different ways. And I've kind of begun to appreciate that supporting others into such a state is just another way of conceptualizing all these different teachings that we hear of. All these different points are all just pointing us in this direction of what I like to call alignment, flow, and it's again aligning with this natural state, this life force, this energy, this pull, this call, this guidance. Do you see that? Do you see that playing out in your personal experience?
100%. 100%. I think when you're describing control for me is the choice to, again, not trying to control the experience, but controlling how I choose to experience it. Controlling not the outcomes through my expectations or beliefs about whatever it is, but choosing to be in a state of appreciation of it and controlling how I'm moving through that, choosing to be my highest self as I'm experiencing these things, as opposed to, like showing up. I've used this example before, but I think it's a pretty good one where I'm sure we've all been invited to a family function or a party that we didn't necessarily want to go to, but for whatever reasons we've committed to going and we show up. You can choose to be a miserable fuck at that party and sit on a couch and be on your phone the whole time, or you can choose to engage and meet people and have conversations with them and help wash the dishes or whatever it is. How we choose to show up, I think, is of the utmost importance. How we choose to interact with the experience, how we engage with that is of the utmost importance. And if we're calling to our higher self through that, that's when the magic happens. That's when the conversations spark, and it happens to be on a topic that is exactly what you were thinking about, or you're hearing the things that you precisely needed to hear at that moment in time, or you get into the kitchen and start cooking some magical food that that everybody gets to enjoy. That's the sovereign choice. That's the willpower that we have. That's the influence. That to me is the ultimate flow state.
When we focus on what we can control.
Yeah. Showing up present, showing up and engaging fully with, love and gratitude as the foundation of what we're trying to do.
Dude, I feel like you just said it all all the good stuff, all the things that need to be said, and you sum it up all so elegantly and perfectly. But I'm still going to ask you the question,
Sure,
the final
sure.
question, the ascending question. Um, just before that, though, if anyone who comes across this is interested in connecting with you, is that something that they can do?
Um, yeah, I suppose. I'm on social medias. I'm not particularly active um, as a choice of mine because I found it to be an area of time and attention that I often can utilize better.
Hmm.
But I'll happily engage if anyone who is interested. Julian Raimondo on pretty much everything: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram
I'll link it up so you
is,
don't have
yeah,
to give the URL, but I'll definitely link up your socials. Um, so if anyone does want to check you out, connect with you, they have the opportunity to do so.
yeah. I'd happily engage in that. I'm not really, again, I'm not. This is my first podcast, so you popped my cherry for sure. Um,
Don't forget about
um,
me.
never,
When Tim
never. If it
Ferriss and Joe Rogan's got you on, don't you forget it started here.
Never. Yeah, I mean, like, I love the opportunity to engage with anyone who's willing to put up with my shit and listen for a minute. I do enjoy a conversations and a good, inspiring, um, inspiring interaction. So I'd happily take on anyone who's curious or wants to reach out for sure.
Cool, my man. All right, we're gonna wrap it up with the grand finale. I
All
know
right.
you shared a lot of magic, but you're gonna have to top everything that you said with this one. You ready for it, my man?
Okay. Always.
Jules, brother, you just actualize the power in your infinite potential to telepathically communicate with all of humanity. What do you have to say?
Hmm. It's kind of a twofold. I would say number one is know thyself as fully as you possibly can. Really dig deep into the things that the reasons why you are, not so much how or what you are, but why are you the way you are. That's the thing that's kind of set me on my journey of personal discovery. Um, and then through that, find at least a moment of every day to be in awe, reverence, and gratitude, not just to be grateful for something, but be gratitude, be in awe, be in reverence, marvel at the beauty of life, even in the most uncomfortable or horrible situations or losing a loved one. There can be a huge opportunity for you to appreciate the fact that there is a beauty in every type of experience that we're blessed to have. Um, if you're going through some hard shit, um, know that the faculties are yours to not just dig yourself out, but completely through to the other side, and to reveal your a newer, better version of yourself, and and to make the choice to create the you that shines as brightly as you're allowed to shine, which is infinitely.
Shine that infinite love and
Yeah,
infinite
man.
potential. You
Yep.
did it, brother. You topped it. You
Awesome.
put the cherry on top.
I tried. I
I
tried.
popped your cherry and
That's
then you took yours and put it on top.
I put it on top on the swirly, beautiful Dairy Queen sundae.
That we co-created in this epic conversation.
Yeah, man. I'm so grateful for you having me on here, and taking that introductory conversation that we had upon meeting each other for the first time in person, um, and allowing this conversation happen. And I feel kind of one-sided. I want to pick your brain a little bit more and have another incredibly indulgent conversation, and find out a little bit more about your experiences through that incredible men's retreat that we had. Um, but yeah, I know it's not going to stop. I know this. I know the journey's never going to end, and I know the relationships that we choose to cultivate have as much meaning and significance as we choose to put on it. And I have a incredible amount of gratitude and appreciation for the relationship that we've started and that we're having. And I'm very excited to see where it's going to end up for both of us.
I just hope that you still had that telepathic communication switch turned on, because I felt that, man, and I know others are going to as well. Jules, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for you and your presence, and for being here, for all that you've shared. Let me just kind of wrap this up with saying, if this in any way can serve as providing you some sort of platform or catalyst for more of you to be shared in this sort of way, that's something that I'm personally looking forward to, because I truly do believe that you have a gift within you, man, that's waiting to be given, that's being given, and it's gonna keep coming out. And I just want to say again, I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes through you as you.
I appreciate that very much, man. I feel your sentiment, and I definitely think that everything that we've kind of talked about, in that kind of surrender and the going with the flow of things, culminated to this. And I mean, we'll see what the world provides me with. We'll see what life throws my way. I'm in a position right now where I'm fortunate enough to be able to say yes to as many things that I feel inspired to say yes to, and I am not really resisting. So if more things come about, I'll happily jump on and see where it leads me. I mean, I have no immediate. I have an intention, but I have no immediate plans. Put it simply.
Summing it all up perfectly again.
Yeah.
All right, my brother. I think that's going to bring us to an end of this particular interaction. But I want to thank you one more time for being here, for joining me for this. Until next time.
You got it, man. I love you lots, and keep up.
Senders, that is going to be it for this conversation that I had with my boy Jules. I hope that it was able to inspire in you that natural state of awe and gratitude and presence that in living from, you'll begin to see and better take advantage of this amazing opportunity that we have to get to know and to grow into the fullness of our potential. Before we sign off here, senders, gotta put out the invitation one more time. The Ascend Academy is looking for the star seeds, the light workers, the beings of light that are here on this planet at this time to serve in collective ascension. You've heard the call to come together, to unite, and to serve. The Ascend Academy can be found at togetherweascend.com/academy. We're looking for you, family. Anyways, that's going to be it for this episode of Awaken Ascenders. Thank you for being here, for tuning in. And until next time, keep ascending.